Girl Chic from Chic Speaks. I am coming on tonight to talk about Lolo Jones. Let me know if you can hear me. I had some issues with my last live, so I want to make sure that you can hear me. If you can let me know, put a 1 in the chat if you're able to hear me okay. Because I had a lot to say before, but I'm coming back because my volume, my sound wasn't right. So I want to make sure you can hear me. But I want to talk about Lolo Jones and I guess her meltdown she had not that long ago, as she talked about the fertility process that she's gone through with trying to, I guess, freeze her eggs. I think she's trying to freeze her eggs. So she's going through the motions. It wasn't what she thought. It wasn't what she thought it was supposed to be like when she thought about having a family. She thought, okay, she was going to have a man around, and that's what most of us think. We think that, okay, when we envision having children, we envision a man being a part of that. We envision having a good time while making this baby, and we envision how this baby's going to look. Is it going to look like me? Is it going to look like my husband? Like, we have these thoughts. But Lolo, she's going through a process that she didn't foresee. And that process consists of just her and her doctors. No man around. It's just her and her doctors. So I want to get into that. I want to share the emotional video that she posted on her Instagram as she was, going through the process. And I just want to talk about whether or not she had any other options, if it was an option for her to start the process earlier, as far as with, getting married, starting a family, being serious about, finding a partner and having babies. So let's go ahead and thank you for joining. For those who are signed on, please like, share, subscribe. Make sure you got the notification bell on so you know when I go live. But I'm going to share my screen. I want to show this video of Lolo Jones, going through the process with, as I say, I think she's kind of freezing her eggs. So let's get into this video that she posted on her Instagram. Fair use.
I've waited for my husband for so many years, and I'm just getting mad. And I'm about to turn 40. There's a lot of stress on me right now.
I know it's all you got to just be strong. And it's a fight just to keep it together. I know you think that you are too far.
Blood work came back normal, hormone levels are normal. So we're gonna proceed with the process of building these eggs.
Hold on, don't let go. Hey, hold on, don't let go.
Let's see.
I've waited for my husband for so many years, and I'm just getting mad. And I'm about to turn 40. There's a lot of stress on me right now.
I know it's all you got to just be strong. And it's a fight just to keep it together. I know you think that you are too far.
Blood work came back normal, hormone levels are normal. So we're gonna proceed with the process of building these eggs.
Hold on, don't let go. Hey, hold on, don't let go.
So we saw, listen, sis going through the emotions. She's like, listen, it wasn't supposed to be this way. I wasn't supposed to be getting poked on. Like, it wasn't supposed to go down like that. And unfortunately, that's the story of a lot of women. I know just in my own personal life, I've had conversations with women who, much like her, who in their younger years, I feel like, I feel like Lolo Jones prioritized, her career over family, like, period. I feel like that's what she did. And then as she got older, and she's at 35, I think that's when she started to really want to hunker down and try to prioritize finding love and, thinking about with having children. And the question is that kind of late? Is that too late? Because just when you're going through the whole, fertility just process and going to your doctor, and even as a pregnant woman, if you're 35 and up, you're considered high risk. It's a high risk pregnancy because that's just the chance where all kinds of, it's just increased chance of anything wrong going on, birth defects, all of that. So it's just strongly encouraged by medical professionals for women to start that process, that fertility process before 35. Like that's strongly recommended. So that's something I'm aware of. And I think a lot of women, I think it's a good number of women that really aren't aware of that. But I think it's only because I think a lot of times we as women, we just think we just got all the time in the world. I think like men, like, they can have babies until until they dead, really, because they're constantly producing sperm. But women, we're not constantly producing eggs. We're born with X number of eggs at birth. And then once we start having our cycle, the good, we start releasing them, and the good ones go first. And that's why when you get in your later 30s, those eggs that you do have, they're not the most viable eggs. So even as we watch her going through this process with them trying to store, get her eggs, store them, we don't really know even what the quality of these eggs are because she's already at 40. Typically, when you're having a conversation, or a woman's having a conversation with a doctor about freezing her eggs, it's before 40. Usually it's going to be ideal like 33, like before 35. So she's at 40 going through this process. So already right now it's a question of, okay, what's the quality of these eggs that she's trying to freeze? And she's not the only one in this situation. Like I said, just in my life, I've had conversations with women who desire to have a husband and children. There's one person I have in mind in particular to where, that was something, she was exploring as far as with she wasn't even exploring freezing her eggs. This person I have in mind was just exploring with just going through like an IVR type method and I guess getting a sperm donor. But most of the, other women, they've kind of just still been holding on to finding Prince Charming and hoping that either he'll be good maybe with not having kids, or they're hoping that the Lord will bless them with a child. So it's just like, it really shouldn't be that deep, but I think it just comes down to us women not being intentional. I think we have to think much earlier than what we do about when or what we want out of life. So if that's going to, if we're envisioning our future and we're thinking about children, I think we really need to be realistic about what's the ideal time to start that process. And that may require you to have a conversation with your doctor, so because the doctor, they're going to let you know, okay, well, based on, your situation, age, and taking these, factoring in these things, is best recommended. You probably want to start having a child by this point. Like they're going to have it. They can tell you all of that, but you have to be willing to sit down and hear that. And I think a lot of women, like I said, I think we just get stuck on, we look in the mirror and we see that we still, feel like we look good. We're still getting compliments. We still feel good. So we think that, oh, okay, I'm good. I can have a baby, later. Then we're not even factoring in, okay, well, when that time comes, there being a viable partner or somebody who we'd want to have that with being around, because let's just keep it real. A lot of times, the pool of men that we may have access to in our 20s, it may not look the same when we get in our 30s. Like, it is what it is. And, for women, most women, their most viable time, or when we're found to be the most attractive is in our earlier years, which is typically in our 20s or early 20s. So fast forward to now we're in our 30s, and it's just like, okay, we're 34, 35, and we're like, okay, I'm ready to get married. I'm ready to have these babies. Okay, well, where the men at? Where they at? They were lining up, 5, 6, 10 years ago. Like, where are they at? So that's a real thing, but a lot of these women, they have the nice house and the cars, the careers, the businesses. So the accolades, just like Lolo Jones. Lolo has medals and award. She has these accolades, but she don't have what she really wants. Arguably, probably what she probably finds to be most important, which is family, given how emotional she's showing herself to be on social media. So when I think about Lolo Jones, I think about how she could have still made a way to prioritize family while still having her career. And I say that because I have two people in mind who did that. And those two people are Olympians, Allison Felix. She represents the United States of America in the Olympics, and Shelly Ann Fraser Price, who represents Jamaica. Both of those ladies got married, had a child, and still managed to crush it in their career field, which is track and field. Both of them have a lot of medals. I mean, Allison Felix, she's the most decorated athlete out of men and women. She has 20 medals total. And then Shelly Ann Fraser is one of the most decorated athletes as well. She has 10 gold medals and 4 silver medals. So both of these ladies, got married, had a baby, and still crushed it in their career fields. Whereas Lolo, really, when you put her resume up against those ladies, her resume doesn't even look like theirs, but though she waited, so these ladies found a way to make them both work. If there is a will, there is a way. And I think Lolo had tunnel vision. And her thought was, I have to just focus on this because I want to achieve this goal. And then anything else that didn't, impact that, like, she didn't pay it any attention. She thought, okay, I got time. Then when that time passed, she looked up and it's just like, wow, okay, I'm ready. But the man isn't anywhere around, and then she's needing that man to help her to conceive a child. And then we got to throw in, sis is still a whole virgin out here. So she's 40 years old. She's a virgin. She's still, looking for love, and she wants babies. Sis got a lot going on, y'all. She got a lot going on, but I can understand why she's crying, why she's emotional, why she's frustrated. And she's like, oh my God, like, it wasn't supposed to be this way. And that's life. More often than not, life doesn't happen the way that we planned for them to, or the way we anticipated for them. It just don't work out that way. So we just gotta be intentional about everything that we do. We have to really be realistic about those things and those goals. We cannot just dismiss time. We can't do that. And I think a lot of us women are guilty of trying to move like men, because men, it's really like as though they got all the time in the world, because they don't have to factor in, oh, I got to have a kid by this age or that way. They don't have to think about that because they're not the one carrying the child. Many men well into 50s and 60s, some even 70s and older, are still out here making babies because it has no bearing on their body. Their body is still able to produce sperm. New sperm, unlike us being able to produce like new eggs. No, like I said, at birth, we're born with X amount of eggs. And when they gone, they're gone. Like, the good ones go first. So our situation isn't like theirs, and we have to be realistic about that. Listen, I ain't make up the rules. I'm just here to let you know. I just report them. And I think a lot of us women, it's just like we want to buck the system because we don't like it. Well, I don't like that rule. I don't like that it's that way. Okay, well, sis, you can not like it all you want to. It doesn't change the fact that it's not going to work out for you that way if you're trying to move like John over there, because you're Lisa. And there's some things that, we can't do the same as men, and that's okay. So Lolo, she got to live with the decision that she made. But like I said, she's not the only one who's in her feelings about the decisions that she's made. I have another video that I want to show with another young woman that's out here putting her feelings on the internet about how she feel about the idea of, not yet finding love and, having a baby. So let's get into this one. Thank you all for showing up. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, chime in. Let me know your thoughts. Let's have a discussion on this because I want to know your thoughts on this too.
I'm crying because I'm emotional. Black women or black girls, you can do it and stitch me with this. I just have a question. Am I weird for wanting to be married and wanting to have kids? Like, me personally, I don't think I'll ever get that. Like, everyone always says there's a person for somebody, but it's just like I see so many. And it's probably because it's the way I'm raised, or I had a broken home. But I just see so many black women that are tossed aside and unloved. It just makes me feel that way, It's like, damn, do I get a happy ever after? And I know marriage isn't a walk in the park, but I just want it for my own. Ooh, I'm crying because I'm emotional. Black women or black girls, you can do it and stitch me with this. I just have a question. Am I weird for wanting to be married and wanting to have kids? Like, me personally, I don't think I'll ever get that. Like, everyone always says there's a person for somebody, but it's just like I see so many. And it's probably because it's the way I'm raised, or I had a broken home. But I just see so many black women that are tossed aside and unloved. It just makes me feel that way, It's like, damn, do I get a happy ever after? And I know marriage isn't a walk in the park, but I just want it for my own.
So, like I said, Lolo's not the only person who's out here who's, in her feelings about the decisions that she's made, because at the end of the day, like I said, it is rooted in the decision that Lolo made as far as with when she decided to start that process with trying to, I guess, settle down and start a family. And it didn't work out the way she planned for it to work out. And I see that a lot of women are in that same situation where they've spent the bulk of their life or their adult life building their careers, making money and trying to create a foundation for, I guess, that day they did decide to try to have a family. And, that maybe took a while. So now they're like, okay, I'm good. I'm 35, 36, 37. I got my money straight. Okay, I'm ready to get married. I'm ready to have children. And even though she feels like she's ready because she got all those things, in order, that has no bearing on that quality, that man being there to assist her with that. And then that man that she's needing to create a child, to make a baby with. So that's a situation I feel like Lolo's found herself in. And I've seen a lot of women that have found themselves in that same situation, which is why I'm also seeing a number of women, professional women, successful women who don't have children. Like, just think about the celebrities that we're seeing out there that, are up there in age or, 40s plus 50s, and you never heard about, they never got married. Some of them didn't have children. Let me see. I can think of Vivica A. Fox. She's been married, no kids. Taraji P. Henson, she has a son who's an adult. She didn't, You know, she had him before we even knew who she was, not married. Sanaa Lathan. Like there's a lot of women who either never been married and no kids, or they may have a child, never been married, but they're professional women who are very successful. And just even just in my regular everyday life, I see a lot of women who are doing the doggone thing. Like those, you know, women, they're not on that level from a financial standpoint, but just your regular everyday woman who's just really out there getting to the bag. But many of them would like to have husbands and children, but now it's so hard for them to come to find that, because now say these women who are around age 40, the men who are in that same age range, they're really kind of checking for a younger woman, not really a woman who's 40. Also, many of these men would like to have children. So they're factoring in if whether or not these women are of childbearing age or are able to give them a child. So that's a conversation right there. So even with Lolo, you know, what would have to be factored in, say she meets someone and it's a man who don't have children and he wants children, will she be able to give him kids? Like these are just the things that we have to think about. And we may not want to think about them, but we have to think about them, because if you choose to not think about them now, oh, you're going to eventually have to think about it, you know, and you rather, you know, it's best to think about it early on when you can make the right decisions and plan versus later when it's like you're having that conversation way too late. Whereas now the conversation is about freezing your eggs. Because really, low key to me, 40 years old is kind of late to be trying to go through that whole freeze your egg process. Typically, when I hear talk about that, that's usually for a woman who's maybe 35 or under with, you know, freezing of her eggs. So to be having that conversation, to be doing that at 40, like I said, the good eggs go first. So at 40, those aren't the most viable eggs, but okay, sis, you know, if that's what y'all doing. But that's something also that has to be factored in. It's just like, when are we freezing our eggs? What quality of eggs are we freezing? So that's a whole situation right there that sis is in. Like I said, she's not the only one like that. You know, I feel like, you know, she could have definitely done both. You know, she could have had her career and the family, just like Allison Felix, Shelly Ann Frazier. Both of them, you know, got married, had their children, are very decorated in their field, you know, of track and field. Like they got a lot of medals, hold records, all of that. All of that. And they just did it. They made it do what it do. They did it simultaneously. And Lolo didn't. She thought that she can only focus on one thing at a time, and this is where it got her, you know. So I do hear some women, you know, I've heard women tell women, oh, well, you know, it's not important. You don't need to get married, divorce, you know, marriage ends in divorce more often than not anyway. You like all that. But I noticed that the women who do speak that language are typically women who don't have those things. Like I've yet to hear a married woman or married woman with children tell another woman, a single woman, that she doesn't need to get married or have children. Like I don't hear it. It's always like somebody who don't have it themselves. And it's, to me, I feel like it's coming from a place of, well, if I don't have it, then I'm not going to encourage you to have it, because I don't want you having something that I don't have. So let's just be in this club together of not having a man and children, or not having a man, or being a single mom, like all of that. And so we have to be careful with who we're taking advice from. And then we have to factor in what their life looks like. What kind of decisions did they make, you know, and are they giving me the best advice? I think if there's something you want out of life and you see someone has it, I think it's best to go have a conversation with them. You know, say, for example, Lolo Jones, as she was, you know, at the height of whatever, you know, in her career, she could have had a conversation with somebody she saw that got married, had a baby, and was still running, like to talk about that. Because I just gave two examples of two women who did it. So, you know, it is beneficial to talk to people, to identify people who have what it is that we want. So therefore we can make the best decision, and we're not just making decisions going off of what we think we can still do, but we actually got true factual information, scientific information, because talking to our doctor would have been science, with the doctor saying, yo, listen, sis, let's talk about the birds and the bees, and the best time to go ahead, the most viable time for a woman to get pregnant, the stats on the likelihood of certain things happening. She could have had those conversations and gotten her answer if she was open to that. But to me, it seems like she's just now having those conversations with doctors, and the conversation has her in tears, because really the doctors now are looking at her like, listen, sis, we can do this, this, and that. But in reality, because you're 40 years old, these are the odds. Like these are the things that have her in tears. Like, because she can't do nothing, no matter how good she looks when she look in the mirror. It doesn't change the fact that she's a 40-year-old woman and her body is progressing like a 40-year-old woman, period. No matter how many miles that she can run, like that has nothing to do with it. And she's now coming to realize that. But I have another video I want to show you, because like I said, we have to be careful about who we're listening to, and if these people are even wanting the same things that we're wanting, because sometimes it can be a whole setup where somebody out here just telling you something just because, listen, they want you to be in the club with them, and they don't want to be in that lonely club where they're by themselves with not having certain things, because that's a real thing. People will, tell you anything, just to keep you down. And I feel like this video I'm about to show you is an example of that. So let's get into this video. Fair use.
Like many of us, was taught to grow up dreaming of my wedding, not of my life. And I spent many years dreaming of my wedding
to the choir,
and also waiting to be chosen. Well, here's the thing. I'm the chooser. And I can choose to get married if I want to, but in the meantime, I am choicefully single, happily, gloriously single.
Let's play that one again, y'all.
Like many of us, was taught to grow up dreaming of my wedding, not of my life. And I spent many years dreaming of my wedding
to the choir,
and also waiting to be chosen. Well, here's the thing. I'm the chooser. And I can choose to get married if I want to, but in the meantime, I am choicefully single, happily, gloriously single.
So y'all heard it. Sis said, I'm the chooser. Do y'all feel like Lolo feeling like she the chooser right now? Because if she was, she could have had chosen that man and said, hey, we about to make this baby right now. But as we're seeing, that's not the case. She's not choosing when it comes to that. Ultimately, the man is the one who's choosing you as the woman. He's the one asking for your hand in marriage. Hence why Lolo is still single. So we have to be careful about who we're listening to, because Tracy Ellis Ross, from what I know, I don't believe this woman has ever been married. I know she doesn't have any children, and she's a whole rich woman. Her mama is Diana Ross. So we have to factor in, okay, her choosing to live her life manless. Do your bank account look like her bank account? Can you afford to go through life not having the support of a man, the protection of a man? Can you afford to have a bodyguard, somebody around to protect you, to make sure that you're good, somebody to do what it is that you need done around the house at any given time, take care of your vehicles? We got to factor all that in, because a lot of these women out here, their lives don't look like ours, but we're trying to move like them. And it's just like, because I feel like just even with the millennials, a lot of our, our young girls are girls who are in their 20s. They're looking up to your girls like a Cardi B or City Girls or Megan Thee Stallion. And the message they send in their music is basically, go get the bag. You don't need a man. But if you really peep game, this is what they're rapping about. But when you look at their life is wrapped up with them being in like a relationship. but it's not going hand in hand with their music, because the music is saying you don't need no man, you can go get it yourself. Cardi B got a whole husband. Megan Thee Stallion is booed up with her little Playboy Cardi, she booed up with him. JT from City Girls, she booed up with, professing her love on social media about Lil Uzi. Then you got Carisha, aka My Young Miami, she running around with Puff Daddy and then doing posts talking about how her mental health is in question, even though she's saying it ain't got nothing to do with him. But what I'm saying is that when you look at their lives and then you listen to the music that they put out there, it don't line up. Their lives are showing shit. I know I'm telling you, you don't need you a man, but shit, I'm over here with mines, but I'm telling you, you don't need one. I'm telling you to go get the bag. But at the same time, it's just like they're doing something else. And also their money don't look like your money. So we got to be careful about, who we're listening to out there, because it can be a whole setup. And that's what I feel like. It's a setup. A lot of these girls, it's a setup. They're trying to live vicariously through these celebrities. Listening to, say, you had Tracy Ellis Ross up there saying, and you had, Oprah Winfrey, amen into whatever she had to say. Neither one of them have children. Neither one of them, from what I know, are married. So again, you as a person who wants these things and you're listening to, say, ladies like them, you're thinking, you maybe start second guessing yourself like, wow, well, am I wrong for wanting those things? With that thing that's actually natural? It is natural for a woman to want to be married, to have children. That is the natural way. So anybody trying to make you feel a certain way about that, you need to look at them and give them the side eye. Because 9 times out of 10, low key, they want the same thing. Or they may have at one point had the man and it didn't work out and they really want another one or even want him back, but they ain't finna let that be known. So they'd rather just try to tell you, nah, I don't need that. I'm good by myself. Forget them. You need to just handle your business, be by yourself. Like, I hear it. It's a real thing where women who ain't got nobody's preaching how women don't need somebody and how not all women are meant to be here to have somebody. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Okay, well, good luck with that. Because sis over here, I'm not signing up to intentionally do this thing called life by myself. It's one thing if life circumstances happens and I'm put out here to have to kind of be by myself. But God damn it, I'm not going to intentionally be trying to just pick and choose to do it by myself. Would I do that at? I'm not, listen. The lady at the nail salon told sis, her hands look like she don't live a struggle life. So she was like, oh, your husband must take good care of you. It was an Asian woman. She said that. And so every time I go, she just talks about my hands and loves my hands. But yes, because listen, your girl been married for 18 years. So for 18 plus years, I've had someone looking out for me, somebody taking care of things, me not having to carry the burden of just things with fixing things around the house, having to take care of the kids by myself, having to make sure that my children's father is in the picture. Like I was intentional about the decision that I made to say, hey, I want to do this thing called life with someone. So early on, I identified the person I wanted to do that with. I got married. We had a family. In the midst of that, your girl still got her education, had career going on. So I still did all of that. I just found a way to do it simultaneously. I wasn't tunnel vision with a thought process of, okay, I have to focus on just my career right now. I'll focus on having children and doing all of that, later in my 30s. To be honest, I'll let y'all know a little secret. My mindset was by the time I was 30, I wanted to be done with everything with having the children. Like that was my personal goal. I achieved that goal. By 30, I'd had all 3 of my children. So I knew that I didn't want to wait to do those things. I wanted to do them early. Praise God that I did, because there are so many women who didn't do that. And they're now like a Lolo Jones and the other young lady I showed the video of, who are in their fields because they haven't identified their person. And their person could have showed up in their life at some point, but they dismissed them because maybe they just thought, I'm too young. I had someone tell me, I was like, yeah, I got married at 23. Mind you, I told the woman I got married at 23. and I'm still married. Her response was, oh, that's too young. That's too young. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I did it and I'm still married. So I feel like that still was a win for me because, you know, my end story wasn't like, girl, I got married at, 23 and, I got divorced 5 years later. It's like, I'm still doing a doggone thing. So y'all, we gotta really be mindful of who we're taking advice from. And we have to ask ourselves, are we intentionally trying to sign up for struggle love? Because our community collectively is the only one that be about that life with that struggle love. You don't see in large numbers white women being in that situation, Asian women, Hispanic women. You'll have some sprinkled here and there, but they don't be in that struggle love on the levels of us. Like we got life all mixed up. Like we really have to figure it out. I think that other groups of people are more intentional, as I talk about, with how they move. They're more strategic. Early on in life, they're identifying, okay, I want to get married. Okay, so while I'm in college, I'm keeping my eye out for somebody who's a potential good life partner, somebody I can marry and have children with. The last I knew, the average age of a white woman getting married was like around age 27. So that means Siston identified her partner most likely while she was in college. I once had a teacher tell me when I was in high school, it was a white male substitute teacher I had. He told me white parents send their daughters to college to find a husband. Now, in that process, they're just so happy getting an education. But the agenda is you go to college to find your husband. Mind blowing, but that's what he told me. That's not the message that we collectively tell our young girls. We tell them, hey, get your education, get your money, focus on you, lead them boys alone. Like that is the message. I got that same message. That's the message that we put out there to our children. We don't put out there, okay, yes, do all those things, but still keep your eyes open for if you do come across someone who looks like he's going to be a viable partner, somebody of quality. We don't put that part out there. In large numbers, we don't. We got some. I'm a parent that do. I have a daughter. She's 12, and I already have conversations like that with her. With, hey, you want to do this in life, but you also saying you want a family, but you got to try to figure out a way to where you can somehow prioritize them both and not put more weight in the other. Or you got to figure out which one you want most and move accordingly. Like we have to identify these things much earlier than what we are doing. Hi, Maya 2.0. It's never too late if they're healthy and in the right mindset. I ran across a YouTuber who is almost 50 going through IVR process. They already have an adult daughter. Here's the thing, Maya. Thank you for coming in and your comment. I remember years ago, I was probably maybe in my late 20s, maybe around 30. And so I was still at that point where I was still having my babies. And I was watching an episode of Oprah. I'll never forget it. And it was a doctor. It was about fertility. And it was like, how back in the day, Oprah had always have, her audience was mainly white women, like stay-at-home white women. And there was the topic was like fertility and women having problems conceiving and having children. So there were these women on there, excuse me, it was maybe about 3 couples. I think they were all white women. Thank you. I think they were all white women, and they just talked about how they built their career. Now, mind you, these women on this show at this point, they're in their 30s. They were all talking about how they built their career, how they, bought the house. They made sure that their bodies was intact. They would go to their regular doctor's appointments, have conversations with their doctors about their viability of being able to have children one day. The doctor would say, yes, you're good, girl. You're good. Whenever you're ready, you're good. By the time these women were getting ready, at this point now, they were like in their mid 30s, like in their 30s. They couldn't conceive. They couldn't hold on to the pregnancy. So these doctors on there, they were saying in medical school, they weren't part of the curriculum, wasn't to teach them about part of the curriculum, it was just a really small portion, but it wasn't focused on talking to women about fertility and your viable age on when you should have kids and when not. He said they didn't cover that in medical school. He was like, they didn't go over that. So these were things that once they started being in their practice, they came to learn like, wow, a woman being able to have a baby or naturally conceive a child and go through all that, that really has no bearing on how many miles she can run, how healthy she's eating. It doesn't have anything to do with that. So that was what that episode was about. And I never forget that. And I learned where they talked about your most viable age, basically at age 27. They say about at 27, started at about 27 upwards to like your early to like 32. Like you need to be trying to make that thing happen. And that's just going off of just, with the quality of your eggs, because they said the good eggs go first. That's when I learned about the good eggs go first. And you ever hear anybody talk about, oh, they got them old eggs? That's where that saying comes from, because the not so good eggs are the ones that still stick around, but those good eggs are passing through first. So that's how I know that it doesn't have any bearing on how good somebody's look, how snatched somebody's waist is. All these women that are on that show look visibly like perfectly healthy women. So that's awesome when you talked about somebody being in their 50s and going through IVR. But I also know a woman I met one year on a cruise. She said when she was at 40, she was an RN nurse. She finally was like, yo, okay, I'm ready to have a baby now. Her doctor pulled her to the side because remember, she was a nurse, so she had a good relationship with her doctor. I guess her doctor was work at the same hospital where she was working at. And she was like, I'm ready. Doctor pulled her to the side, was like, ma'am, yeah, we done ran our tests, did everything, and you don't have any good eggs. Like there's nothing, like they're not there. We can't do this. No kids, I'm not having any kids. So the example that Maya gave, that's a great example. But there's, are you familiar with when people use the word anomaly? That's an anomaly where in large numbers, you're not seeing situations that are as favorable like hers, or say like a Janet Jackson. More often than not, the people fall into that bucket of it being like, where it's not a success. That's the thing. So it comes down to, do we want to take a chance on being in like a 2% type situation? Like, is that a chance that we want to take because we know somebody that knows somebody that, it was able to happen for? Maya 2.0 says women 40 plus need men under 40 to conceive with them. Men's semen age like our eggs, which usually produce offsprings with autism and other issues. That's interesting. I do know that, men, unlike women, they can still continue to produce sperm. Whereas, with us, we're just born with X number of eggs, which is why they're still able to more so than us still conceive a child with a younger woman versus us being an older woman trying to conceive a child. So you take me, Maya, at 50, and then we take David at 50, and we both in competition to see who can have a baby on the way. He's gonna be able to probably make that happen faster than me, because I'm the woman, I'm older, so I got things going on with my body, whereas he has his sperm, regardless of the quality of sperm that he has, it's still sperm that's going to more, have a better, it's going to work and be able to impregnate some woman, especially if she's a younger woman. So still, they got the chances of them being able to produce more children is definitely greater than ours as we get up there in age, if that makes sense. So I think we have to just be strategic. Again, we're going to have those stories where we heard somebody or we know somebody who was able to do it. But when we look at the numbers, the people, that pool is going to be a very small group of people who have success stories like that, versus other. Then, when we think about it, how many of us are intentionally signing up to want to go through an IVF process? Like, that's really not, when we think about, when we think about wanting to have a baby, that's normally not the whole thought process. Most women, they were probably not even familiar with the whole process of what goes into that, because that's not part of the fairy tale. You don't really see that in the movies. Like if somebody get pregnant, that's not how you're seeing that they got pregnant. So that whole IVF, that's more of like an afterthought. Like when you're having a conversation with your doctor about how you haven't been able to get pregnant a natural way, then That's when the doctor come in and be like, okay, well, let's talk about this non-conventional way. That comes into play. So I think that's why Lolo was in her feelings, because she didn't envision that going that route to become pregnant. Like, who does? Like, really, who does? Like, I remember just years ago, I don't know if you all seen it, when Gabrielle Union had did the interview. She was on Dr. Oz, and she said she had, like, I don't know, sis had a lot of miscarriages. It might have been even in a double. She either said 9 or it could have been in the double digits, but she had a lot of miscarriage. She still was never ever able to carry a child. So again, like, we have this in our mind when we think about what it looks like to one day become, pregnant and to carry a child. We don't factor in the hands of doctors being all up in that. Like, we just think about it being ourselves and our partner, the person who we want to make this baby with, period. And then we announce to the world, y'all, we're having a baby. We not expecting a whole medical team to have their hands in the process. We not expecting to have to be going home like Lolo's doing and giving herself shots, to aid in the process. It's not supposed to be painful. Like that's not how it's supposed to be. But this is how it is for many women because of decision that they made with choosing to wait later. Now, granted, there are some people who didn't maybe choose to wait later, but I really think that the bulk of these women, it comes down to the decisions that they made, and they chose to not prioritize family. They chose to, at an earlier age, let me say that they chose to focus on their career because they felt like, well, if I slow down, somebody's going to take my spot. That's a real thing where you don't want somebody to take your spot. You like, and I got to keep, I got to keep going because I don't want somebody to take my spot. And I don't know if any of you what your age is, but I grew up watching like 106 in Park and watching on BET, the talk shows Jaleesa and Roxy. If you remember either of those ladies, well, Jaleesa has like this podcast. I don't know if it's still on, but I saw an interview with her doing an interview with Roxy. And both ladies at this time, when they were doing the interview, they were like right at 40 or right in the ballpark of like, somebody was like maybe at 39, one was at 40, but they both were like right there at 40. And the conversation was, sis, I want a baby. Sis, me too. But both of these ladies were so successful in their careers in their 20s. They both said, yo, I didn't prioritize it because I was afraid of just if I stop and I lose the momentum, that I would basically lose my spot in the industry. So I kept going. And now I want these things. I want a husband. I want children. And I don't have any prospects. Both of these beautiful women, both of them are like, nah, I ain't got no prospects. What you got over there? I ain't got nobody either, sis. And they both were just having this really candid conversation, both talking about their families. They both were women that come from both Latina, Hispanic background, so they both, come from families where, who, they all about family, and their moms and family are like, yo, when you going to make me a grandma? When you going to have a kid? And they're like, I don't know. And Jaleesa, Jaleesa asks Roxy, hey, would you be willing to have a child by yourself? So I guess go through the IVR process, whatever. And she was like, I'm going to say no, because I don't want to go through that process by myself. So she's like, yo, if I don't find that person to do it with, then I'm just going to, I got some nieces and nephews. I'm just going to be the auntie. That's what she said, and she told Jaleesa that she was in talks already with doctors about freezing her eggs. And at that time, my thought was, wow, at 40, being in talks with a doctor about freezing your eggs is, like I said, you're typically doing that in your early 30s. Because remember, that's when you had your good eggs, at 40, you got your older eggs. So she was just now at a point of having a conversation with her doctor. So then Jaleesa's like, well, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I need to have a conversation with my doctor. Remember, I said sis was 40 also. I think she was maybe like 39. I'm like, really? Like, now we're having this conversation? I'm like, So I think that's what's happening. A lot of women, it's just it's an afterthought. They they still getting the likes, and people still crushing on them, and they thinking they still got all the time in the world, and they don't. So your fertility has no bearing on like what your face looks like or how your body looks like. One don't have anything to do with the other. Like, we see fat people all the time, or people who we might consider to be attractive getting pregnant and knocked up. Like, we see it. So it don't have anything to do with it. And that's what I learned, that year on Oprah, when the doctors were like, no, how healthy you are really don't have any bearing on this, that fertility process. Maya 2.0 said, I certainly focused on my career. The BAM at 45, I found myself pregnant with twins while on a contraceptive. So yeah, you focused on your career. I said, I believe when you look at a woman's life and look at what she's done with it and her accomplishments, you can tell where her priority was. And I say that because typically a woman who's really doing the doggone thing, got the money and all of that, from what I see, they're women who don't have children and aren't married. Whereas the ones who I see that are married and have children, they're not as high up in their career as that woman who don't have those things. And I say that because it's a time thing. If you got a husband and children, you don't have that time. You can't be killing it. You can't be staying at the office long hours. Your children got little league practice. Daughter got recital. You got to go home, cook dinner. You have a husband. Like, life is different. Whereas when you're a single woman, or Maya, think about your life when you were doing your thing and focusing on your career. And when you look at other women who maybe had the family and the children, were they moving the same as you within their career? Were you able to accomplish more because you didn't have those other things? You were able to prioritize your time, your effort, like everything on work. Like, you was able to just focus on that. You didn't have to share it with anyone. So I think it makes a difference. And, you have your babies, you have your babies now. And I'm sure, that's a blessing for you. But many women, they don't have that story. They're like, listen, I was able to struggle to get one, but after that, it ain't no more coming because I was lucky to get this one, or I still can't even get the one. Like, I hear a lot of women's story like that, where it's just like a struggle situation. And the root of it was that they waited to start the process. I don't hear women talking about having these struggle situations and they're in their 20s. Like, I just don't hear those. Those aren't the conversation. It's like women who are like 30s, like late 30s, early 40s, who are telling me the story about, yes, I had to go get help with trying to get pregnant, or I got pregnant. I didn't think I could get pregnant because the doctor said, you hear those stories. So my thing is just like, we just got to be intentional. If we want to chase our career, ain't nothing wrong with that. But we also have to be good with the fact that down the line, when that time comes, and if we do decide to want to have children, have a family, we have to be good with what that process is going to look like, because of that sacrifice that you made. What they say, you can't have it all. Like, I'm a sis over, I say you can't have it all. I accomplished a lot more, but I also lost all the friends that had children. We no longer had anything in common. Wow. I bet, like, I have a sister, don't have none of the above, the man, the kids, straight killing it. But by choice, she's 41 and she doesn't want any of those things. But when I say her life looks nothing like my life, or looks nothing like her twin sister's life, I have sisters, they're twins. So me and my other sister have children, like, so our career, things like that, looks nothing like hers. But we had other priorities. So it just makes a difference on, what you choose, to prioritize. And, I understand when you say you lost friends that had children, because, my sister, who don't have any of that, her closest friend, she's closer to like people who don't have it. So like, her closest friend is somebody whose life looks just like hers, except that her friend actually is wanting to get pregnant and go through the process with IVR and do all of that, because if I think she's an only child, and she's thinking, her thought right now is, I think from what I heard, like, she's like, I don't want to die alone. Like, this is her thought process. I don't want to die alone. So I'm willing to just go through the process and just have this baby by myself, and so this person, is about to be 40 next year. So I'm seeing like a lot of women who are like around 40 who are just kind of just questioning life. They're like, like they're really legit questioning life. And it is what it is. As I say, there's no do-overs. We just kind of have to, live with our decision, make the best of it and just be good with, what you got. Because it is what it is. So I can only hope that, Lolo finds happiness and, ultimately get what she wants, whether that's the man and the baby, or she just only gets the baby, or maybe only get a man. I don't know. But she, whatever happiness is for her, I just hope that she finds it. And I, just as I hope that for any other woman. But I just think that most importantly, it's good that we as women have these conversations early on. And then, as I say, each one teach one. I think Lolo, as she's coming in contact with other young women, I think she should continue to be transparent and talk to them about her journey and her process and the decisions she made and how her decisions impacted her life. So therefore, somebody following behind her can take that into an account as they're making decisions about their life as well. Because that's all we can do. Because at the end of the day, it's our personal decision, and people can't live our life for us. And Lolo's no different, just as the girl next door. We're all women. We got the same body parts. Maya said, you are doing an awesome job. Look forward to more of your lives. Thank you, Maya, for joining. I'm trying to do something different, be more on camera and talk more about just relationships stuff. I was heavily focused before on celebrity news, but I'm kind of pivoting, and I want to talk about just Black love and relationships and just drop some gems or share anything that I can share just from my perspective as just a married woman, a mom, a career mom, somebody who wears multiple hats. I think we as women, we can do multiple things, but everything comes at a price. And we are not going to do everything on the same level. So for example, I may be awesome at, doing one thing, but, not so good at another thing. But it doesn't mean that I can't multitask and still dip and dab and do different things. It's just about, doing all that you can, being resourceful and not being tunnel vision, thinking that you have to just focus on one thing. We don't have to just focus on one thing. We can do multiple things, but we just have to be realistic about, okay, the type of energy that's going to be required for us to do those things, and not beat ourselves up if we see that, okay, man, I was killing it in a career, but I feel like I suck as a parent, or, I'm great at a parent, but I feel like I suck as a career. Like, it's okay. It is okay. Long as we're just trying and we're out here just doing our best. That's all. And I think Lolo, to me, she comes off to me as a perfectionist, whereas a lot of times people who are perfectionists, they're stuck on being perfect. And I feel like what she may have had going against her is this mindset of needing to be perfect and having to do things in a certain order. And that could be something that comes along with people who are high performing athletes, with being very disciplined and very like focused. To me, it's like maybe her focus was more like one of a male, like very just focused. And it's just like, okay, sis, I get that. But you also saying you want to have a husband and children one day. So we still got to try to, we got to try to kind of veer this way a little bit. And like I said, I watched a really good interview, or, someone showed clips of an interview with Shelley and Fraser Price. And she talked about, with having her husband, and he sometimes would remind her of like, hey, sometimes she had to take a break and just stop and just focus on something else, or family or something like that. It's about balance. Really, that's the key. It's about balance, having balance. And I think Lolo didn't have balance. And now she's realizing these things. And this is where a lot of the emotion is coming from, is that she's realizing that she doesn't have the balance. And we want the balance. We as women, we naturally, we want the balance, and we can have the balance. We can have the balance. but we have to we have to think about it. We have to stop and think about it. We got to plan, just as she planned out her moves when it came to her career and what kind of athlete she was going to be. It's the same type of thought process that needs to go into our personal life as well. Okay. As far as with being intentional with keeping your sight open for a partner, somebody who can be a potential good father for your future children, all of that. So, lesson learned for her. But like I said, at best, she can, she's putting her story out on her social media. So I'm sure there are ladies, who's going to learn from her situation. So, that's all that can be done. Each one teach one. So I decided to come out here and kind of switch gears on my platform. I changed the name. I don't know if you recognize that, Maya, but it was Chic Say What. It's now Chic Speaks, because I want to speak more to our people, in particular to our women. I just want to get a message out there that I feel like that's not being heard. And that's the message about just the importance of family and balance, and how getting a bag is good, but it's not everything. Because at the end of the day, that family is there. That's what counts. That money can come and go, but your family, or you got your babies, your babies are here. Those are your babies, but people not going to be thinking about you down the line with, how well you did at that company, because they easily interchange you out. But your family, your kids, they're your legacy. I just would like to see us women prioritize things like that more, and not be so focused on career, just not be so focused on career. I think I would like to see us more focused on families and strengthening our families, preserving our families, putting more energy into finding a quality man, not just be so focused on just superficial things. Making sure, him having the certain type of height, the certain skin complexion, the body type. I would be curious to know Lolo back, when she was her 20s, what was her type? Was she picky about the type of man she was wanting to be with? But I bet you one thing, I bet you right now she ain't picky. Because I noticed that women, as they get older in age, like that list gets shorter and shorter, because reality kicks in. And I bet you right now, that list real short. She's like, listen, I just want somebody who just gonna love, respect me. I don't even care if he's shorter than me. Listen, I bet you that woman like, listen, I don't care if he ain't never even played a sport in his life. I don't care if he ain't 6 nothing. Like that, the priorities change. The priorities for us change. It does happen. It just happens kind of late for a lot of women. It happens kind of late for a lot of women. So that's why you got all these dating apps, and you see these women all on these apps in their 40s and 50s, swiping left, swiping right, all of that. When I was dating, that wasn't a thing. You had to get out, mix and mingle with people. It wasn't no social media. So you really was like having real conversations with real people. You weren't trying to live vicariously through celebrities' lives, because we didn't really see their lives like that. There was no reality TV. And if the lie in which you've seen of celebrities, it was acting, it was scripted. So you knew that. So it wasn't like you were trying to emulate somebody, because you knew, oh, okay, this is just a sitcom, Whereas today, what we're seeing people's lives play out, and what they're putting on social media is giving the illusion that this is their real life, when they're just putting out there what they want you to see. Like I use the example of the music. These artists are just putting their lyrics in their music. It's like, you don't need no man. Go get the bag. F him, F all these men, go to the strip club. But in their real personal life, that's not even how they're living. That's the gag. The gag is like, they don't even be on that tip. They just selling that through their music. You're nailing it. Listen, sis, I appreciate you. Like, the deal. They ain't even on that tip. Y'all, I recently heard somebody talk about, and I heard this before, where Future, y'all know he remember he had that song Percocet. I like the song, he talking about popping the Percocet. And he was doing an interview with somebody, and he was like, I don't do no drugs. And they were like, what? But that man said he is not about that life. He's like, I don't do drugs. And how many people out, like, think about it, how many artists or people out there that rap about or sing about the stuff, that type toxic stuff, and they not even about that life. That man straight up said, I don't do drugs. Like, no. He probably run around here drinking smoothies, eating salads, snacking on carrots and peanuts, like, because he's not no fat, he has a nice frame, probably living in the ultimate healthy life. He probably even drink alcohol. He probably don't even drink alcohol. But meanwhile, you got these kids out here popping perks and, thinking this is the way to do it because they bumping this song and this is what he's saying to do. Like I said, the city girl said, F him, you don't need him. But you got Young Miami on her a couple of weeks ago on social media talking about how she depressed and can't sleep. Everybody naturally put it on, Puff Daddy putting her through the motions like he's done all the other women. And then you got JT talking about, oh, I'm in love with Uzi. He my everything. Sis, didn't you just tell them girls tell that man to F himself? F him. You go get your, but you all over here putting on social media how you in love and love this man dirty draws. Listen, this is why I'm out here on this channel right here talking, because the lies, what they say, lies and propaganda. That's not how it is. Them women low key on the side living a life just like me, but they rapping about something different. They living a real basic, simple life, all booed up, but they telling you to go out there and just be Tatiana. That's what they telling you to do. JT ain't out there being Tatiana. She with Lil Uzi. That is her man. She said, I love him. And we see Young Miami out there, having sleepless nights, messing around, chasing around old Puffy. So, but that's not what their lyrics are. So we, I want our young girls to face reality that it's a perception. It's a perception, and it's just to sell records. And while they over here trying to get booed up and get into some type of solid situation, they need to be doing the same thing. You need to be out here trying to get yours too and secure, and settle down and get your man, and have your kids and do all of that, because Cardi B got hers. No matter what she rapping about in her lyrics, she got her husband and her multiple houses and her kids. All her kids are by her husband. Even though her lyrics are saying one thing, that's not how her life is playing out. Cardi B life look like she legit got a husband and some two kids. Like she's living like a regular person, but it's not matching up with her lyrics. She talking about she don't cook or clean or nothing, but then she I think posted before on her socials of herself cleaning up her house. Make it make sense. Like, you got to be smart and see that it's just to sell music. It's an illusion. So I say all that to say that we got to be careful about who we're listening to, who has our ears. If there's something you want in life, pay attention to the people who are telling you, giving you this advice. Pay attention to how they're moving. And if the way they're moving, if it's lining up to what the things that you want, because they're not going to try to tell you, yeah, go on, get married and get kids or whatever. If that's not even what they got and they over here by themselves struggling or whatever, they going to try to encourage you to be in a situation. So they won't be by themselves because they don't want to be left behind. Like, that's the real deal. Only non-married people or people with no kids talk that language. People who are married, got kids, whatever, they don't be running around telling girls, don't get married, don't have kids. They don't do that. I've never heard of a woman who's married with children telling another person not to do those things that she did. Never. But that one who ain't got none of the above, I'm always hearing her telling some young girl, or even some woman her age, you don't need to date nobody. These men dusty anyway. And I know what the deal is. They don't want to be left alone. So we got to be smart enough to read between the lines and see it for what it is. Lies and propaganda. So that's all I got for you all. Thank you for showing up. Please like, share, and subscribe for those of you who have come. Again, this is I'm doing something new, something different on my channel, Chic Speaks, and I'm just kind of kicking it real. I'm speaking to you, speaking to my ladies. I want us to collectively do better, so when you know better, you do better. So I want to come out here and just share some things from my life experiences so the next person can learn and maybe benefit from it. Thank you, Maya. You have a fantastic evening too. And I will catch you all on my next broadcast. Peace.